Whether it's your favorite colleague at work, your best of a bad bunch political leader, your Champions League winning manager, or your favorite team star signing, everyone leaves eventually. Just ask your dad. In the WWE, the vast majority of exits are dealt with off-screen and without explanation, sometimes leaving casual fans to wonder what happened to the future Frankie Kazarian from WWE Velocity. I really enjoyed him, or much more likely, where did the longest reigning champion of the modern era, CM Punk, disappear off to? I wonder if he's coming back. Here's a spoiler, kids, he's not. Sometimes though, if the exit of a big star comes as the result of a rundown contract, a need to get away from the business for a short time, or a tour with rock band Fozzy, a wrestler can be given the opportunity to be written out of their storylines and out of the business through an angle shot for TV or pay-per-view, with the results varying from the to the wow. In this list, we'll be focusing on the wow, and while we will be avoiding all planned retirements and wrestler deaths as they deserve their own lists, we will not let you down for this. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 most memorable WWE on-screen exits. Join us. Number 10, Vickie Guerrero is fired. You'll fight for your job in a pudding match. Vickie Guerrero refused to take the orders of the McMahons while in charge of Raw in 2014, and as a result, she was told to fight for her job in a match with Stephanie McMahon. The result was a Stephanie-branded screw job in which several WWE women's wrestlers would come to the boss's aid and help to get Vickie chucked into a pool of pudding, ending her tenure as general manager and resulting in her on-screen firing. You'd think that this was memorable enough, but what followed was even better. In the moments after Vickie's realization that she was no longer employed, Stephanie would orchestrate a goodbye chant for the pudding-covered Guerrero family member, basking in the glory of her plan like only a McMahon can. But when Vickie realized she no longer had anything to lose, Stephanie's complexion changed, and with good reason. Vickie would grab Steph by her hair and chuck her face first into the pool of pudding, exiting to the music of her deceased husband while performing his signature dance on the entrance ramp, thus ending her WWE tenure as babyface, a role she hadn't filled for 7 long years. Number 9, Jim Neidhart. In a post-screwjob WWF landscape, Shawn Michaels was a golden boy, and anyone associated with Bret Hart was, well, the opposite. In the aftermath of Bret's infamous exit, most of the Hart family followed him out the door, leaving only Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Owen Hart in the company. Owen was, however, hidden away from backstage politics and TV angles due to an injury, leaving the Anvil to take the brunt of the backstage politicking for the small amount of time he remained under the WWF umbrella. On TV, it was decided that the ultimate act DX could pull as a heel stable was to befriend a former Hart Foundation member in Neidhart and make him a part of the group, if only for one night. The heat was massive, clearly, but following their victorious outing over Vader, Chyna would low-blow Neidhart as he celebrated, igniting a beating from Triple H and Shawn Michaels that would be his final appearance with the company. As he laid on the mat, his friends and family ousted from his place of work due to controversial backstage politics, Michaels would grab the mic. Who's the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be? The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Number 8, The Spirit Squad. One of the more obvious burials of WWE talent in the modern era is our next entry. DX's ousting of the Spirit Squad from WWE television via a transport box with a label on it saying Destination OVW, Louisville, Kentucky, WWE's developmental territory at the time. Ouch. The Spirit Squad had been developed alongside a heel McMahon character as the opposition to the newly reformed D-Generation X, and had a run as the tag team champions, as well as multiple marquee pay-per-view matches and main events, but when their feud with Triple H and Shawn Michaels was over, all 5 of them were jumped into a box and directed back to developmental, with only Nikki, now known as Dolph Ziggler, being able to get over the stigma of being associated with the group to make a full-time return to the roster later in his career. This entry was less about the drama of the moment, the quality of the production, or the excellence in the delivery, and was more a case of DX giving a strong nod to the smart fans while almost literally burying 5 guys simultaneously on live TV. As I said before, ouch. Number 7, Batista waves goodbye. When Batista returned and won the Royal Rumble in 2014, a WrestleMania main event against former Evolution brethren Randy Orton seemed to be his destiny. As we all know, that wasn't meant to be, as Daniel Bryan was inserted into the title picture and subsequently won the unified WWE and World Heavyweight titles. Nevertheless, Batista's on-screen pursuit of the gold held firm. Triple H used the Animal's determination to draw him into a feud with The Shield, in which the former Evolution stablemates of Triple H, Batista, and Randy Orton would unsuccessfully challenge Reigns, Rollins, and Ambrose for the stable dominance. So when Evolution took to the ring once again to build for a challenge against The Shield, Batista was having none of it. He demanded a world title shot, an idea Triple H shot down because of Bryan being injured, and after a little goading from the arrogant and passionate Game, Batista calmly responded with, "I understand. and I quit. It would be the last time we saw Blue-Tista on WWE TV, with Big Dave literally waving goodbye in one of the most meme-worthy moments in recent WWE history. Triple H would angrily shout after him, "When your movie crap's out there, don't come running back to me." Batista never did. Number 6, Chris Jericho is fired by Eric Bischoff. "You son of a bitch, you're fired!" Well, it couldn't have been made any clearer. Jericho was told by then Raw General Manager Eric Bischoff to take the WWE title from John Cena on the 22nd of August 2005 episode of Raw or be fired. He of course lost, and Bischoff soullessly fired him despite the two being allies prior to the match, but it was in Jericho's quivering performance of a desperate man begging for his job back that this moment became so memorable. And who could forget that awesome visual of Jericho being carried up the ramp and out of the arena by security as he screamed for help and another chance at his job. It was the perfect way for an underhanded heel like Jericho to go out and would plant the seeds for the justice that would be served in our next entry. Number 5, Eric Bischoff is put in the trash. Eric Bischoff joining the WWE was such a huge moment in wrestling that it was always going to take something more than a casual off-screen exit to say goodbye to his dastardly heel character. It's almost as if Bischoff was hired just to give Vince, the WWE roster, and the fans a bit of catharsis in seeing him eventually fired. His on-screen firing came to pass on the 5th of December 2005 when, after a series of skits depicting the then general manager on trial, with Vince as the judge, were interspersed across the show, Bischoff would be fired by Mr. McMahon in the boss's trademark gravelly catchphrase, "You're fired!" Okay, I can't do it. With the former voice of ECW, Joey Styles, on commentary describing the action, and Mick Foley, whose first world title win was spoiled on WCW TV per the orders of Bischoff in the ring, Vince took Eric Bischoff and put him in the trash, just as Bischoff had instructed Medusa to do with the WWF Women's title years prior. It was sweet, poetic justice within the story of WWE's history with Eric Bischoff the man, and the perfect goodbye to a character who had defined so much of professional wrestling history. Number 4, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. The middle fingers seen around the world. Brock Lesnar and Goldberg chose to leave the WWE in the boom of the internet, where news of their respective post-WrestleMania departures was common knowledge, consequently booing the pair out of the building for the entirety of a match that was about as action-filled as your sex life. Even with all-time great Stone Cold Steve Austin in the ring as special guest referee, Lesnar and Goldberg was one of the worst matches in WrestleMania history, with both Lesnar and Goldberg easing off hitting anything that required any sort of physical exertion. Their in-ring story of rest holds and lockups clearly being with one eye on their post-wrestling careers, Goldberg's in acting and Lesnar's in the NFL. Following the match, Brock Lesnar flipped off the live audience and the hard cam and was stunned accordingly. Goldberg too. It was as if Austin was vicariously working on behalf of the WWE and the fans, laying two huge wrestling figures out and sending them on their merry way with a series of middle fingers of his own. Number 3, Shawn Michaels loses his smile. I've lost a lot of things, and one of them has been my smile. I know it doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody else, but it means a lot to me. So I have to go back and fix myself, take care of myself, and I have to go back and find my smile, because somewhere along the line, I lost it. When Shawn Michaels emotionally delivered those lines on an early 1997 episode of WWF Raw, many thought it was over for the Heartbreak Kid. As things turned out, he was back just a month later, apparently healed of his career-threatening injury, and back in the main event. Backstage rumors suggested personal substance issues or a refusal to put Hart or Austin over was the real reason for his sabbatical. But for the viewing public, it felt real, at least temporarily, and it offered them a glimpse into the real Shawn Michaels underneath the bravado, a person they would learn to appreciate over the course of his emotional goodbye and would learn to love over the decades that followed. In a career that spanned 3 decades and countless memorable matches, this exit promo remains one of Michaels' most memorable moments and in many ways encapsulates the life and career of a man who too often teetered on the edge of self-destruction. Number 2, Bobby Heenan is thrown out of the arena by Gorilla Monsoon. Bobby Heenan was always phenomenal as a despicable, slimy heel in the WWE and has gone down in history as one of the best talkers, on commentary and as a manager in the history of the industry. The Brain, as he was often referred to, held a long-standing position in the WWF opposite Gorilla Monsoon as a talent, a host and a commentator. But after too many slimy deeds and despicable actions, Monsoon, then acting commissioner for WWF Raw, had finally had enough when he chucked Heenan out of the old Raw arena by the scruff of his neck. Heenan begging and pleading for forgiveness every step of his long walk to unemployment, eventually landing foot first in his own luggage bag. An act of physical comedy that not only made for a fitting goodbye to the all-time great WWE character, but also illustrated the man's unique talent for making the most out of every second of screen time he ever had. This was a truly unique and memorable moment provided by two of wrestling's good guys. Number 1, Bret Hart. You all know the one. The Bret screwjob of Montreal at Survivor Series 1997 is without a doubt the most memorable WWE exit of all time. But more than that, it may even be the most infamous case of a person leaving their job in the history of capitalism. To us, the paying viewer, it was the perfect storm of a moment that saw Shawn Michaels take the heat and the title from the best there is, was, or ever will be in Bret Hart's final ever WWF appearance as a full-time performer. But with our retrospective knowledge of the realities of the evening, this entry is even more memorable, not least because of how shocking, disrespectful, and somewhat tragic it was. In the build-up to Survivor Series 1997, Bret had told Vince McMahon that he'd be leaving the company for a lucrative new deal at rivals WCW, owing his exit to Vince's inability to pay his lucrative long-term contract. The issue was that Hart was WWF champion and disliked Shawn Michaels so much that he felt uncomfortable losing to him in Canada, Bret's home country. There are many differing opinions on exactly what happened in the days leading up to Survivor Series 1997, but what we do know is that Bret thought he was winning the match, that Earl Hebner called for the bell while Michaels had Bret in his own submission finisher, the sharpshooter, and that Vince McMahon orchestrated the whole thing. Following the biggest not a tap-out finish in the history of the sport, Hart was so incensed that he spat at Vince, wrecked the ringside area, and wrote the letters WCW in the air with his best there ever was finger. So that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.